Don't worry about everything I've got written here, but honestly, today's topic might leave you feeling a little overwhelmed, just like all this information does. Hi, I'm Michelle Smollenberger, the CEO and a financial advisor here at Financial Design Studio, and today we're talking about Post-Secure Act Inherited IRA distributions. And honestly, we're seeing a lot more inherited IRAs that people are receiving because with our aging population, more of these accounts are being handed down or passed on to beneficiaries like you. So the goal of today's video is that I want to help explain and make sense of a lot of the rules and the information that are out there so that you know exactly what you need to do. So first off, there's a lot of information that you will need to know, and these are really simply pieces of information that will affect how you have to take money out of these accounts and by when. So first, we're going to talk about what you have to do with these accounts, but ultimately we're going to talk about what you can do with these accounts. And there's so much information, so I'm going to point you to other resources along the way too that we've created. First, let's look through the list of things that you'll need to know. So first, you need to know the age of the deceased person who has passed away. So your loved one who's no longer alive, how old were they when they passed away? What was their birth date? So some of this we can always calculate, but just knowing it is also helpful for you. The birth date of the person who passed away, and then what was their date of death? And what's going to become important here is, was it before or after January 1st of 2020? But we'll talk about that more here in a minute. And then also, had they already started taking their required minimum distributions? So that's one piece that, again, we can calculate, but if you know it, it's just going to be even more helpful. So as we take some of this information, we're going to start to dig into the definitions of what types of beneficiaries so that you can see who you are and where you fit in this chart. Now, the Secure Act, it was basically a piece of legislation that was really important, and it defined some changes in how people inherit these retirement accounts from loved ones and from people who had listed you as a beneficiary on the account. So after the Secure Act, when someone passed away after January 1st of 2020, these are now the rules that will impact you if that was your loved one, if they passed away after January 1st of 2020. That's something very important that you need to know. So if this defines you, then first we're going to ask this question: who is the beneficiary? So you're asking for yourself, who am I in this chart? So first, let's talk about the eligible designated beneficiary. Now, this is a beneficiary who is perhaps the spouse or can be a minor child of the deceased person. It could be an individual who is less than 10 years younger than the deceased. So think of someone like a sibling. Or it could also be an individual who is chronically ill or disabled. So if you fit any of these and you were listed as a beneficiary directly, then this is you. I'm going to talk you through the other two types of beneficiaries first, and then we're going to talk about how this impacts what you have to do. So the next group of beneficiary is a designated beneficiary, and this simply means that you were listed as the beneficiary, but you are not one of these. You are not one of those people that we just listed, like a spouse or minor child. So you're listed as a beneficiary, your name is on the account, but you're not one of these. Then that's you. Now, maybe you are someone who is a non-designated beneficiary. This simply means that your name was not listed directly on the account. However, you are a beneficiary because the will or the trust or through the estate, you became a beneficiary. So a non-designated beneficiary wasn't listed on the account directly, but you are a beneficiary through one of these sources. So it really depends what type of beneficiary you are, because that will affect how you have to take money out of these accounts. Now, I said how you have to take money out of these accounts, and that's what becomes really important. And you're going to see here why the planning and the options that you have are going to become crucial, because let's start to dig into what you have to do. So if you were an eligible designated beneficiary, you're one of these people, then you can stretch distributions from this account over your lifetime. Now you have to take a little bit out of this account, possibly each year. Depending on who you are, it's going to depend what you have to do. But you can stretch these out over your lifetime. Now, one note on this, if you are a minor child, you only qualify to stretch distributions over your lifetime until you're the age of majority or around age 21, but you should check your state just to be sure. After that age, you're no longer a minor child, and so now this 10-year rule applies to you. Now the 10-year rule says that within 10 years of inheriting this account, or after you've turned the age of majority, you now have to take all of the money out of this account in those 10 years. Now, you could take a little bit each year, you could take all at once, in the beginning and the end, but you have to take the money out within 10 years. So that is the eligible designated beneficiary. Now let's move on. The designated beneficiary, the rules for this now start to become important. Remember that information that I said we were going to need? This is why you need that. So if you are a designated beneficiary and the deceased person they passed away before their required beginning date, meaning that they died before they had to start taking money out of their retirement account, then you have to take money out of this account within 10 years. You have the 10-year rule. Now, the required beginning date and RMDs in general for people as they're retiring, we've already done videos on, so I'm going to refer you to those so you can learn more about that. However, the required beginning date is very important because that is the year that retired people, as they're aging, and maybe not even retired yet, have to start taking money out of their accounts. And it depends based on what type of account you own. But that's why this required beginning date, that's why it's important to know. And it ties back to the birth date. That's how we start to calculate what these ages are. So don't feel like you have to know all of these things, but we can look back and we can calculate them to see what they qualified for, when they should have taken things out. So let's go back to what you have to do as a designated beneficiary. If your loved one, they passed away before their required beginning date, then you have the 10-year rule. You have to take money out within 10 years. Now, if your loved one passed away after their required beginning date, so they had already been taking money out of their retirement accounts, then you still have the 10-year rule, but you also have to take the stretch distributions. So this means that not only do you have 10 years to take the money out, but if you're going to wait till year 10, you have to be sure and take a little bit out of the account each year. You have to stretch it out over your life, or stretch it out over that period of time. You've got to continue taking money out, but within the 10 years, it's all got to be out. So that's where you need to be sure, because let's say that you had decided you wanted to wait until year 10 and you didn't take something out each of those years you needed to, there would be a penalty that you would need to pay on this amount that you didn't take out that you were required to. This is why this planning becomes so important, and we understand it's very complex. What's really cool is when you're planning and when you start talking about, well, what do I want to use this money for, or what could it be used for, and when do I need it? That's when you can start to set a plan and start to figure out the best way for you to take it out. So that's why it's really important to understand what you have to do, and then you can figure out what you can do. All right, let's talk about this last type of beneficiary, the non-designated beneficiary. Now, this was someone who's not listed, but you are a beneficiary through the will or trust. If this is you and your deceased, your loved one passed away before their required beginning date, then you have the 5-year rule, meaning that you have to take money out of this account within 5 years. So this is really important for you to understand, because it's not 10, it's not over your life, it's within 5 years. Now, if your deceased or your loved one had passed away after their required beginning date, so they had already taken started taking money out of their retirement account. Then you have the 5-year rule, but you also have to be sure that you're taking money out each of those years. So it's very important to know, do I just have to take money out in 5 or 10 years or over some version of that or over my life? It's very important to know, because if you don't, there are penalties that you have to pay. This is why we always love to do financial planning, because it's the perfect mix of tax planning, investments, financial planning, so you are keeping as much as possible. Now, let's just talk about the last piece that's important. And this is, what type of account are you actually inheriting? So think, and you can look on the statement and you can see, is it an IRA, like a traditional IRA? Is it a Roth IRA, a SEP, or a simple? These are more employer-sponsored accounts. Or a 401k or a 403b. Each of these accounts have different tax implications. So they're all going to change, and that's why you need to know. Even like a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, there may be no taxes that you owe when you take the money out, but you've got to figure out, when should I take money out? And there's actually some really good things that you should consider that are going to help you to keep even more. So that's why it's very important to know the timing. A traditional IRA, the SEP IRA, all of these pieces are important to know, because you also have income that you're earning, and all of this, when these accounts are taxed and money comes out of them, it just adds on to the money you're already earning, which you might already be in a high tax bracket. So this is why this financial planning is the perfect intersection of tax planning, how do we invest these funds, and then just financial planning for what we want to use these dollars for. That's why this is all so important. So a great place for you to go visit, if this is something that you're saying, I need help, but I want to make sure that the person who's going to help me knows and understands this information, I want to send you to our website where you can take a look at our tax planning page, our investment management, wealth management, financial planning, and all the other topics that we cover, and we explain how we do this. So I hope this has been helpful, and you also might be finding yourself saying, well, wait, I think I might actually be a pre-Secure Act inherited IRA beneficiary. So if that's you, in a couple weeks, we're going to have that video to help you understand what you've got. But even in the meantime, if you know you need help, please take a look at our website, and we hope that we'll talk to you soon.